Welcome to another episode of True Crimes and Weird Times. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kim.
And today, we're going to do things a little bit different. We switched it up some. I'm going to give you a true crime case.
And I'm going to sit here and listen. I get to be lazy today.
Today, I'm going to share with you the case of Darlie Routier, who was charged with murdering her 2 sons. And I'm going to give you all the information, and then I'm going to let you decide whether she's guilty or not.
Oh, I'm gonna decide.
I figured you would, for sure. Now, if you're a follower of our social media, which you should be, we posted an article 2-3 weeks ago asking for your thoughts about whether you believe Darlie Routier was guilty or innocent. We had a couple of discussions on a couple different platforms, and people were very much either she's guilty or she's not. There was like no in between.
So you're either all in or you're all out. Like there's nobody who's like maybe. Everyone's like yes or no.
Personally, I'm at the maybe stage. But like people were really defending their beliefs on this. Like this was pretty heated all over the internet. Not on our social media because we have nice fans.
We do. We have the best fans.
But, I mean, there were a lot of debates on this. And I think it's a pretty well-known case, maybe. But I had never heard of it. And I had a few people saying that they had never heard of it either.
I've heard of it. So I've heard of this case. I've listened to podcasts on this case. Mm-hmm. But I research and listen to so many true crime stories that eventually they all kind of run together.
Yeah, they all blend together. And then you find that one thing and you're like, oh, yeah, that's it. I remember this one.
Right. You're going to hit that one point at some point in this episode. And I'm going to say, hey, I remember this.
Now, there's a big one in this. And then a lot of people, if they don't remember this case, might go, oh, yeah, this is the one.
Okay.
So there's a big one in this. But anyway, I thought I'd give this case a fair shot and kind of give both sides of the story because there's a lot of information that suggests maybe she's not so guilty.
Okay. I'm going into this open-minded.
Okay. I also wanted to give like a really quick shout out to Ginger from True Crime Queen, who has her own podcast. We discussed it on Instagram, and she was the one who made me want to go a little bit deeper because she knew a few things that I didn't know.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And she got me to like want to dig in deeper, and it's a rabbit hole. And this is the one I was going to go all the way down and finish it. So
that's a risky move, man.
So shout out to her for that. And let's just get into this thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
I've talked enough for that. Now, Darlie Routier lives in a newly built home with her husband, Darren, and her 3 sons, Devin, who's 6, Damon, who's 5, and their new infant son, Drake, which he was probably just a few months old.
Okay.
At most. It's summertime, June 5th. The 2 older boys wanted to have like a little camp out in their living room, you know.
Pretty standard kid stuff.
Yeah, as you do as a kid. They wanted to just hang out in the living room, sleep in the living room, you know. And the parents were okay with that. Now, Darlie decided that she was going to sleep with the boys downstairs. And this wasn't unusual because she had already been sleeping downstairs. Because she said that the baby was keeping her awake and she couldn't sleep, which I don't think anything weird of.
That's pretty standard as far as I'm concerned. I mean, when our son was a baby and he slept in a bassinet beside the bed, every little sound he made, I was wide awake, even if it wasn't a cry.
Yeah. Oh, me and my youngest kept each other up. I slept on the couch for like 6 months.
Yep.
So, I mean, I get it. Completely. So, the family hung out in the living room that night. And they were watching TV, and then the boys eventually got tired, went to sleep, you know, in the living room. Darren and Darlie stayed up for a little while. They were talking, as you do. Mm-hmm. They're just hanging out.
Grown-up time.
Yeah, grown-up time. And then about 12:30 to about 1, Darren put the baby to bed. He went upstairs. Now, he said he stayed up for a little bit and was just kind of watching TV for a little bit upstairs, and then he just went to sleep. Just about an hour or 2 later, though, after he had gone to bed, Darren woke up hearing, like, Darlie just out of her mind screaming, and she's screaming out Devin's name. So, naturally, he jumps up, he runs downstairs, and he immediately found Devin and ran to him, and he was still lying on the floor where he was asleep when he went upstairs. Mm-hmm. But now he's completely covered in blood, and he has, like, 2 holes in his chest.
Oh, man.
Now, Darren says the first thing that he does is he slaps Devin across the face in an attempt to like
wake him
up, like get it,
I could see that.
Yeah.
That's still not super weird to me. I mean, if you're panicking, your child's not answering you, you're trying to just wake him up.
Yeah, I was going to say, and think about it, he just woke up out of a dead sleep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Devin's unresponsive. He tries to perform CPR, but when he actually blows air into Devin's mouth, air and blood just blow right back out of his chest.
Oh,
so these are through and through stab wounds. He then finds Darlie like completely drenched in blood, and she's already on the phone with 911. Now the police arrive within minutes, and not only do they find both of the boys injured, but they also see that Darlie's neck has been slashed, and she has a huge gash on her arm.
She didn't notice? Did she not wake up? I'm going to let you keep talking.
Now the paramedics work on the boys. Devin's pronounced dead at arrival. Damon was actually still breathing when they arrived, but eventually he died from his injuries too. They did all they could, and then...
Do we know what his injuries were?
It was also stab wounds.
Oh.
Paramedics then take Darlie to the hospital, and they turn the home over to police so they can start investigating. The police find blood everywhere. The murder weapon, which was a butcher knife, was still at the scene of the crime, and it looked to have come from the Routier family's knife block. And it looked like the original point of entry was in the garage, where there was a screen that had been slashed open. Now, this didn't look like a burglary, like anyone had just come in to just steal, and this was a burglary gone wrong. Everything in the home was untouched, nothing was taken. In fact, Darlie had some jewelry, some rings and stuff that she had taken off and placed on the counter in the kitchen. They were untouched, so police aren't thinking this is any kind of a robbery going on.
Yeah, there's valuables right out in the open, and they didn't take them.
There was a broken wine glass that was in the floor and a knocked over vacuum cleaner, but otherwise there was no other physical mess besides the blood, I'm sure.
So they just came in, stabbed everyone, and left.
Hang tight. So, of course, police are confused. What is the motive? Like, what is going on?
Right.
Because it's not normal that somebody just comes in, kills everybody, and leaves. I mean, there's cases, but it's not like, that's not the go-to.
Yeah.
So they needed more information from Darlie to kind of fill in the gaps, but they weren't able to get a statement from her because when she went to the hospital, she immediately went into surgery to work on the slash on her throat. It was like 2 millimeters away from her carotid artery.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so they wanted to work quickly to get everything stitched back up.
Stitched back up.
Stitched back up. They talked to some of the doctors and nurses that worked with her in the hospital. A lot of their statements were kind of a mixed bag of, yeah, she seemed really weird, not like a normal person would. And then some were like, I didn't see anything weird. But these people are talking to the police, and they don't have all the story, and they're just kind of getting an idea of, oh, her sons are dead. She
was acting weird.
Yeah.
But also, you never know how people are going to react in the face of trauma.
Right.
Never. They might seem totally calm and fine, and that's just how they deal with things. It doesn't mean they're not devastated.
And there's a lot of this that goes on in this story that I can say, I can see that, or maybe. You know what I mean? Now, Darlie was released on June 8th, which was just 2 days after the murders. Now, again, they all went to sleep on June 5th. The murders happened June 6th.
Early in the morning.
Yeah, early in the morning. And then 2 days later, she's released from the hospital from her surgery. And, of course, the police come right to her and to get a statement from her. And her statement to the police was, on the night of the 5th, the boys wanted to sleep in the living room. They all hung out down there. They made some popcorn, watched TV. The boys fall asleep. Darren takes the baby upstairs, and then he comes back after the baby's asleep. And they stayed up for a little while. They talked about things like some money problems they had, which is normal. Mm-hmm. In hindsight, this looks like a clue, but this is normal. She was talking about a vacation. She was going to be taken to Mexico with some friends that was coming up. Some other things, and then some things about some postpartum depression that she had. Now, remember, she'd just had this baby just maybe a few months before.
Right.
Like, 2 or 3 months. She said that Darren laid on the couch with her for a little while, and then around the same time, 12:30 to 1, he kissed her goodnight, and then he went upstairs to bed. And then she says the very next thing she remembers was feeling some pressure on her and waking up to Damon pressing on her shoulder and crying.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's just like my worst nightmare.
I know. And then when she finally fully, woke up and, came to her senses, she said she saw a man standing near the end of the couch where her feet were. And then she could see him walking away. And she said she instinctively, jumped up. And that's where she knocked the wine glass over. But she was going to chase him down, I guess. She then decides to turn around and turn a light on, which is a little strange to me. Because if she's going after this guy, I wouldn't be turning around.
I don't know. I might. If it's totally dark in there and I can't see where I'm going, the first thing I'm going to do is try and turn the lights on.
Yeah.
Just personally.
And that's where I'm at with that. It's like I can, but I'm thinking from my own headspace here.
Right.
So she turns the light on, and then she goes back after this guy. She said she was following the path that the man took, which is through the kitchen and into the laundry room or utility room. She then sees a knife on the floor. She grabs this knife, and then she starts yelling for her husband, Darren. Now, remember, Darren said he heard Devin's name, but Darlie says she was yelling for Darren.
Those are pretty similar names, though.
And if he's just waking up out of a sleep...
They could easily be confused.
Yeah. Okay, so she's screaming for Darren, and then she heads back into the living room, and that's when she sees the boys. And this is about the same time Darren comes downstairs and starts trying to work on CPR. So Darlie calls 911. Her phone call to 911 is actually on the Wikipedia page, and we can share that here. So if you don't want to hear this, you might want to skip ahead. Also, the audio is probably not the best, so bear with it, and you'll have to listen really closely. But we'll go over the major parts. And this is the 911 call.
911, what is your emergency? Ma'am? What? Who did? Hang on. Hang on, ma'am. I'm on medical emergency. 681 Eagle Drive. Ma'am, I'm trying to get an ambulance to you. Hang on a minute. My babies are dying. What's going on, ma'am? Oh, my God. Medical emergency 580 Attention 901 medical emergency. Maybe after stabbing 5801 Eagle Drive by 238 Celtic Linda Benson. Louisville, coming out 232. Stand by, car check. Hey. Oh my God. Unit 44601 Eagle Drive 5801 Eagle Drive. The circle people on the phone. Hold on. The child has been stabbed. Ma'am, I need you to calm down and talk to me. What? 1501 Eagle. Ma'am, listen to me. I need you to... Oh my God. Can you take the radio clip? Yes. Ma'am, I need you to talk to me. Ma'am, I can't understand you. You're going to have to slow down, calm down, and talk to me. What is going on? Somebody keep me alone. Sleeping here. My little boys are sleeping downstairs. Stand up, baby. Stand there. Look up. I was trying to ran out to the garage. They're not dead. My babies are dying. They're dead. Oh, my God. Down the telephone. Oh, my God. Is that not one? Hold on, honey. Hold on. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Ma'am, who's there with you? Ma'am. What? Is there anybody in the house besides you and your children? My husband, he's just right downstairs. He's helping me, but he's dying. Oh, my God. Okay. How many 82 out on Eagle. Huh? That Eagle. What Eagle? My God, sorry. 82, you out. Oh my God. Oh my God. Why would they do this? What do you say? Why would they do this? Hey, listen, ma'am. You need to let the officers in the front door, okay? What? Ma'am? What? You need to let the police officers in the front door. The guys were playing over there and I already picked it up. Okay, it's all right. It's okay. We got the press, baby. Ma'am, hang on a second. We walked in here and did it, Derek. Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, is the police officer there? Okay, go talk to him, okay? Yes, that's okay. Go talk to him, though. Okay?
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts about that call. First and foremost, like I said earlier, you can't always judge how someone reacts when they're in the midst of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone reacts differently.
Yeah.
Personally, though, like, I'm probably going to be the person focused on my kids and trying to help them. And I'm more likely personally to be screaming, why would they do this? Rather than, who did this? I touched the knife. There could be fingerprints on it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, okay, as far as the fingerprints in the knife goes, she said there was enough. Then she said, oh, there's enough. Don't touch it. And then she says, oh, I already touched it. So it wasn't like she was just offering up information, like someone trying to hide it. Mm-hmm. The weird part is, like, then she throws in the fingerprint comment later, like, oh, my fingerprints are going to be all over it.
She said, she said you could have gotten fingerprints.
Yeah. That part's a little strange. But even at the same time, if you're, I don't know.
The constant insisting, I don't know who did this. I don't know who did this.
Yeah.
They broke in here and they didn't do anything else. They did this.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I also, like, why didn't she wake up when she got stabbed?
Well, I kind of have some theories on that. She doesn't really say, but I kind of have some theories.
Okay.
And we'll go into that in a little bit.
But, man, that call, first of all, it was hard to listen to.
Yeah.
But
not just because of the quality.
Yeah. That was, like, gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
But still, like, it's hard, though. Do you chalk it up to suspicion? Like, is she acting suspicious because she did this? Or is this just how she reacts to trauma?
Yeah. Well, and as far as the screaming, I mean, it sounds pretty genuine.
Yeah.
But that can just be heard over the phone. You know.
Mm-hmm.
That could just be very good acting.
Yeah.
You know what
Anybody
I mean?
can scream in hysterics.
Yeah.
That's a tough one, man.
Yeah. Okay.
There were several times that we listened and I kind of made that, wait, what? Face?
Yeah. Okay. So you have that.
Okay.
Okay. So now everyone's asking the question, who would even do this? Why would they do this? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Police are starting to now put some of the pieces together, and they're pretty sure of who did it, and they're talking to her.
So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will get into what the police think happened, right?
Yes.
Hi, fellow true crime fans. Let us introduce ourselves. We are Teen Girls Investigate Crime podcast, also known as TGIC. I'm your host and editor, Izzy.
And I'm your other host and social media manager, Jillian.
We create and publish episodes once a week. We cover all kinds of true crime cases.
Infamous to the less talked about, murders to missing persons, solved to unsolved, you are sure to fall down the rabbit hole that is true crime. Follow us on Instagram at tgic.podcast and listen to our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Now, like I said, police already believe that Darlie is the one who stabbed her two sons and inflicted her own wounds. This is similar to other cases where people have done the same thing. Of course, this is where you're going to naturally jump to.
Right. I mean, I guess you have to start looking at the most logical options first.
Right.
Is it more likely that this mother stabbed her kids and then herself, or that some stranger broke in just to stab 3 people and leave for no reason?
Right. So their proof is the knife. Now, she told the 911 operator that she moved the knife, that her fingerprints were on it, and then she told investigators that she picked it up from the floor while she was running after this intruder. But the police are like, why were there no other evidence of the knife being on the floor? Like, there was no blood where she said she picked it up in the utility room.
Like, she found it, there was no blood there?
Right. Like, if it had been dropped, there would have been blood on the floor there.
Right, yeah.
And there's no blood.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean, why would you make that up other than to
have a reason for your fingerprints to be on the knife?
Exactly. And now she defends her decision, picking up the knife. She says she's already touched it. Now, also on this call, to go back to the call for like just a second, and this is part of the police's reasoning. Now, she never says her kids' names during the entire call.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. She never asks how she can help. Like,
that's also true.
No.
Like, why wouldn't you be saying, what do I do? What do I do? How
Yeah.
do I help them?
But here's the thing. Darren did CPR, and
Clearly it wasn't working.
Yeah, so maybe that's why.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she thought... And who's to say that she knew...
Even how to do CPR.
Yeah, even how to do it. Or that the other boy wasn't in the same position.
Like, so far, I've heard everyone really focused on Devin. But the other boy, like, we haven't really talked about what anybody did to help him. Or what happened to him. Or
Well, now, Darren noticed that he was still breathing.
So that's why he focused in on
Right.
Devin. Okay.
And they were waiting on paramedics to come in. And at the end of the call, you know, she's like... She says she feels really bad, like really bad as in I did something wrong, or like really bad because I'm hurting, because that's about the time she says she thinks she's dying. You know, that's when she notices her own wounds.
Okay.
And of course, when she's talking about the boys, you know, she's already saying they're dying, they're dead, they were killed. And then when she's talking about herself, it's just more on her now rather than the boys. You know what I mean? Like,
She never really focuses on the kid. I mean,
there's not a lot of focus in that call at all, but
she does, you know, she talks about, you know, they're dying a lot.
yeah.
But I feel like the majority of her talking was, who would do this?
Yeah.
Or maybe that's just the parts
but
tuned into the most.
And I'm sure that's what the police did too.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing that they're looking at is the wine glass. Now, Darlie says she knocked it over when she got up to go after the intruder. But in the crime scene photos, you can see like a bloody footprint underneath the broken glass.
Of hers?
Well, I don't know whose footprint it is. It could have been hers, or it could have been a paramedic. It didn't really say. But the fact that it's underneath the wine glass, if the wine glass broke and fell on the floor, there shouldn't be anything underneath it.
Right.
An argument to that could be, you know, there was a lot of shuffle. People were moving around. Darren was downstairs. Paramedics came in. Police came in. Somebody could have knocked the glass
Or
over.
even she stood up and then bumped the table and it fell off behind her.
Yeah, that's part of their evidence, but like, it's not really.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's really solid.
Yeah. Anything could have happened between the time she was chasing this intruder to the time paramedics and police were there.
That's another thing that kind of throws me. The getting up and chasing the intruder. Like, I would not do that. Maybe I'm just a big wimp, but the first thing I would do would be to scream for my police officer husband.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Not that hers was, but me
Yeah.
personally, I would just immediately wake up and start screaming for Logan.
Well, see, I thought about that for a long time. What would I do if someone was in my house? Which is always a recurrent thought anyway, because I'm crazy. But
Yeah, same.
maybe it's all the stuff all the true crime we listen
It
to.
couldn't be how much time we spend on
Right.
terrible things.
But like me personally, I can tell you right now, I'm not going to chase after you.
Absolutely not.
For sure. That is number one. But like, I think I would probably like jump back and cower. Say she's on the couch, like jump back and cower into the couch for a minute. And then maybe look around and notice my surroundings.
Yeah, I feel like my first instinct would be to run to my kids and like protect them.
Yeah. Well, and I was trying to think about that. Like, we all have this innate instinct to just, you know, we're fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to worry about ourselves and then like, and it could just be like a split second thought.
Yeah,
and then
maybe,
they're like, oh, the kids.
Maybe she went into fight mode.
Yeah.
I've got to get this guy. That's
Maybe.
possible.
Especially, I mean, maybe it was like a mama bear thing. Like, oh, my kids are down here. No.
Yeah.
And she went after him. I don't know.
That's true, too.
Now, there was also some blood evidence. There was some blood on the couch where Darlie said that she was sleeping. She, of course, said that her throat was cut while she was asleep on the couch. However, a lot of the blood from Darlie was over the kitchen sink.
When
kitchen.
was she supposedly at the kitchen sink in her story, though?
From what I understand, or maybe just from looking at the crime scene photos, I'm wondering if she was on the phone in the kitchen.
At the kitchen sink.
Yeah. But the theory is that because all of this blood is in the kitchen over the sink, that she stabbed the boys and then went to the kitchen and slashed her own throat over the sink.
To make less of a mess?
I guess?
Was there significant amounts of blood on the couch?
It just says that there were some. But a lot of that blood is in the kitchen. But here's the thing. What if, and this is weird, and I'll get into it in a minute, but like, what if her throat had just been slashed, and at this point it's kind of just on her, it's on the couch a little bit, and by the time she gets up, everything's just kind of...
When she starts moving and her heart starts pumping,
Yeah.
you're going to bleed more.
Yeah.
That's true.
But again, that's just my
Personal theory?
devil's advocate
Gotcha.
thoughts. Next up is the stab wounds. The boys' wounds were like severe, and they were plunged all the way through, like front to back. This was all the way through.
Like rage, almost.
Yeah. And it seems a little personal, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they considered Darlie's superficial, which is strange considering how close and how deep that slash on her throat was.
I mean, your artery's not that far under your skin, though. So for them to have missed it, it's not a deep cut.
Yeah, but like, okay, I see where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's
Because
just keep moving.
you can feel your pulse through it. It's right there. If they didn't hit it, they did not put a lot of pressure on that knife. To go from stabbing all the way through someone to not even cutting deep enough to cut the carotid artery, I feel like that's a pretty significant difference.
But if you think about how small 2 millimeters is, that's really small. There's no way like a normal, just average human knows where to stop.
Right.
Just before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the part that's so strange.
Or maybe she intended to commit suicide.
That was my next thought. Maybe it was on purpose to kill herself, but she didn't.
Right.
And then she had second thought.
So what about the slashing wound on her arm?
It was a nice gash.
From what? If she didn't even wake up when they were attacking her, it couldn't be a defensive wound.
Well, there's some theories on that.
Okay.
Which I'll also go into.
I'm getting
I
ahead
do
of you.
this a lot. You get antsy, and then I'm like, no, wait.
Yeah.
No, because I get it. Because I did the same thing. Okay. The next question with that to all of this is like, why, if this attacker stabbed these 2 boys to death, why wouldn't he just killed her the same way? Why slash her throat? What is the difference?
I mean, that's pretty true.
Yeah, and why wait to kill her last? She's the mom. She's going to be the one to fight back if she wakes up.
Yep.
So kill her first, then the boys.
Or maybe he wanted to kill the boys first without risking her waking up and fighting him off.
Maybe. And there's also the theory that perhaps maybe he wanted to do more to her.
Yeah, that's
and
a
he
good
just
theory too.
Didn't have the chance to. The next thing is that screen window, or the window with the screen that was cut open. Investigators on this case said that, people don't usually cut screens to get into houses. You can usually pop those off. It's just kind of a weird way to get into a house.
Yeah, I would just take it off.
Yeah, usually you can just take this stuff off. Here's the weird thing. They found, like, dust that they deemed undisturbed on the screen as well, which means this has been cut for a while and it's just kind of sitting.
Ah.
And, of course, there were no footprints or signs that someone had come through that way. Now, their biggest thing was there were no footprints underneath some mulch that was under the window that he would have left under.
Uh-huh.
But if you look at the crime scene photos, There's no mulch under this window.
Oh.
Yeah, like there's 2 sets of windows. One does have mulch, but the window they're looking at doesn't have any mulch. It's concrete.
That's strange.
Yeah. Again, that's for later.
Okay.
I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. There was also a bread knife that was in the knife block that they said the murder weapon also came from. When they examined those knives, that bread knife had fibers on the blade that were from like fiberglass rods and a rubbery compound, which they say is like the same compound that you would see on screens. So the thought is...
Not looking too good for Darlie.
Right. That she took, or someone rather, took that knife to cut open the screen. This is all kind of stacking up against her, and of course, police are on top of her. This is, again, like you said, the most logical idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just a mom going crazy and killing her kids.
Right.
But what is the motive? Why would she kill her own children? The police think it was about the financial problems they had mentioned, that she wanted to uphold a certain kind of lifestyle that she was living before. They just built a new home. They had a nice, beautiful home. They both had 2 very nice cars. Darlie had all of that jewelry, which if you look for the crime scene photos, you can find. But don't go digging too deep because then you find kids. And
nope.
Yeah, don't do that. I did that. That was awful. And, I mean, they went on all kinds of vacations and stuff. They had their own business. And this helped them keep that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But here lately, things were starting to slow down in the business, and they were kind of racking up some debt and some unpaid back taxes, which was about $22,000 in 1996. It doesn't seem a lot by standards now.
I mean, it seems like a lot to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people have it way worse, but like,
yeah.
This was also in 96, which was...
Don't tell me how long ago that
was. Well, we won't get into that depressing thought, but I mean, it's a little bit more back then.
Yeah,
we'll just say it like that. Even though the business was kind of in its slower months, Darlie didn't really slow her spending. I mean, she was still shopping. She was planning that vacation to Mexico, and I mean, and they're in Rowlett, Texas. It's not like it was that far away, but like. You wouldn't be going on a vacation if you were kind of struggling.
If I owed $22,000, I probably wouldn't be taking a vacation. Yeah. Another
motive, they said, could have been life insurance. That's another go-to. But the boys only had $5,000 for each of them, which is $10,000 collectively. This was barely enough to cover their funerals, and you're not going to kill over that.
Yeah, that's not going to help your financial situation.
Yeah. So, of course... Their thought is, okay, well, it's got to be because they were just expensive. Because if you don't have kids are expensive.
Right.
Very expensive. And now she has 3.
Yep.
Another thing they found was a note in her diary. And the only line they use in her court case is a line that says, "I hope that you'll forgive me for what I'm about to do." And this was written just 1 month before the boys' murders. So, of course, the police have this as well as the other evidence, and they're like, she did it. She planned it. She did it.
Yeah.
Done. So, really quick, let's go over this timeline. Okay. June 5th, June 6th.
The murders.
June 6th, the house was sealed. Investigations. June 8th is when Darlie was released from the hospital, gives her statement. June 9th, they did a gravesite service for the boys. June 14th was a gravesite celebration, which we are about to get into.
That's the one for me.
That's the one. I knew it.
That's what I remember about this case.
Yep.
The silly string.
Yep. June 17th, the house is released from investigation, and then the next day, Darlie is arrested for the boys' murders.
That's really quick.
Yeah. Way quicker than usual.
Yeah.
But it all boils down to June 14th. Which is this silly string incident.
Oh, I remember having so many mixed feelings about this.
It was on the news. People flipped their lids. This is what the jurors used to put her in prison.
Which is insane to me. But I'll let you tell people about it first.
Okay. So, on June 14th, it would have been Devin's 7th birthday. This was only a week after the murders. So the family decides to hold, like a graveside birthday celebration.
Which is not that weird.
Thank you. I feel like if you're grieving... The thing is, Darlie said that Devin was really excited about his birthday. He could not wait for his birthday. And so she was going to give him that birthday.
Right. And I mean, people do things at grave sites. Like, I've known people who've lost a parent and stuff, and they go visit the grave and on their birthday and take balloons.
Right.
Or after, Halloween, they take their favorite candy to them.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
If you walk around, sometimes you see like a whole, like almost a shrine around their headstone. I mean, it's not uncommon.
Right.
But what happens is what gets her in trouble. So, like you said, they're putting up balloons. They put up some decorations. The weird thing for me kind of is that they invite news stations to come and...
That one's hit or miss. Like,
yeah, it's...
I can see wanting to keep your child in the news to help find the perpetrator, but then again, it's not even been a week yet. So, like, no one's forgotten about them.
Yeah. And honestly, the news stations probably would have shown up anyway, with or without an invitation.
That feels more like a look how good of a mom I am move.
Yeah. And then, of course, they have friends and family there. They sing happy birthday.
I've seen the news footage of this. I remember this.
If I can find it, I will put it up somewhere.
On our website or social media.
Facebook or Instagram or something, yeah. If I can find it. They sing happy birthday, and then they spray silly string all over the graves. Like, it looks bad.
It does. It does.
But I think part of that was, like, he wanted silly string at his party.
If he loved silly string, like, yeah, I could see that. But I also personally, which again, I want to emphasize, you can't predict how people will react in grieving processes. But I know me personally, if my kid wanted silly string and I'm at their grave,
they're gonna have silly string. Yeah.
I might shoot it off, but I'm gonna be crying. I mean, I'm going to be just a mess.
Yeah. Now, and again, something people have a problem with. There were kids and stuff running around. People were laughing and having fun, but that
was kind of the point of the whole thing.
Yeah,
though.
and you can't really blame the kids for that anyway. I mean, they're kids.
They're kids.
They don't understand.
They don't know what's happening.
Yeah, they don't fully understand what's going on.
And what are the parents going to say? This is a birthday party, but be sad.
Yeah. So Darlie gives an interview, and she's smiling, and she's popping some gum, and it's just, she says that the boys wouldn't have wanted them to be sad. She knows they're up in heaven celebrating right now. They show her happy. She's having fun, joking. She's being silly. She's just super casual and just like nonchalant about the whole thing.
Yep. Like I said, I've seen the news footage, and Ashley is not exaggerating on this. She seems like a woman at her child's actual birthday party, not at her child's gravesite.
Right. And there should be some solemn parts to it. And honestly, if she's saying that an intruder came in, I would be using this news media outlet to be like, my kids are still dead and this person's out here.
Yep.
Where are you? I'm coming for you. Whatever. Mm-hmm. I would be bringing that to light because you're in front of a camera. But
instead, you're using it to say, like, look, life goes on.
Yeah.
We can still, they'd want us to be happy 6 days later.
Yeah.
Or what? No, it'd be 8 days later.
Yeah.
8 days later. That's still not a lot of time.
Yeah. So it really, really didn't look good at all. The police and the public freak out.
Naturally.
Yeah. And they didn't view it as okay. Naturally. So a couple days after all of this, police, like I said, they released the house. And then the next day, Darlie is arrested. Now, of course, Darlie's completely like, this is out of left field for her. She's shocked. What do you mean,
Oh, you suspected me?
That's weird, guys. She's taken to court, and she's tried for just the murder of Damon. Now, this isn't something weird, but if you're not used to how these work, a lot of times if there's multiple killings, murders, they're going to charge you with like 1 or 2, or in this case just 1, so that if this one doesn't stick, they can hit you with the next one.
They've got a backup plan. They don't have to risk double jeopardy.
Right, that's it. So they just charge her with just the murder of Damon. They present all the evidence to the jury, including the graveside, the silly string video.
Which, I don't know if that should really be evidence, though. Like, I understand it's weird, and it's not what people would normally do, and it shows her being, like, nonchalant about it. But realistically, is that real hard evidence that she did anything to the boys?
Well, this is all circumstantial.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really have anything pinning her down, period.
Did they find any other fingerprints on the knife besides hers?
Not on the knife. But, like I said, the silly string thing is what put her in prison. The jury watched this during the trial, and while they're in deliberations, you know, they were kind of taking a little bit, and then they asked for that video again, and they watched it 11 times.
Wow.
Over and over and over, and I guess just to read her expressions, read her emotions, you know. And they used that to sentence her to death in February of 1997. This is like one of the quickest cases I've ever seen.
Yeah.
These boys died in June. She's sentenced to death in February.
That is a very fast case.
Okay, so you have all this information of what put her in prison. Right now, do you think she's guilty?
I mean, having heard this case before, I kind of had already formed my opinion back in the day. Right at this moment, I would say I'd lean more towards yes.
Okay.
I would think she did it.
I mean, you have preconceived thoughts and stuff about this anyway. I mean,
right.
It's already there. And this is what everybody has seen in the courtroom, on TV. This is what we got. This is what we have.
But having said that, I do personally think she may have done it, but I don't know that they had like hardcore evidence.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing for me, but a lot of cases have been circumstantial.
Right.
I mean, and the way it looks right now, she looks pretty guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And that birthday party did not help her at all. Okay, with that in mind, here's the other side of the story, but like here's some other things that might possibly sway you.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately, Darlie's family jumps in. They're getting on any news media outlet they can get on to talk about how innocent Darlie is. Her attorneys, they immediately get to work on appeals. And, I mean, the biggest thing is just to get her out of prison.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, she's still in prison.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest argument they had against all these accusations were her injuries. Again, there was a slash on her neck, and then there was a stab wound in her arm, a gash. The prosecution only addressed these 2 injuries, and then, of course, they said that they were superficial and self-inflicted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you actually go look at pictures of her from the hospital, the cut itself was actually down to the bone, but it wasn't life-threatening.
Right.
It wasn't hitting anything that could have put her in any kind of danger. It just needed to heal. And then, of course, like I said, the cut on her neck was 2 millimeters away from her carotid artery. If you look at it, the knife wasn't stopped because someone stopped cutting. It got caught by a necklace that she was actually wearing, because that's part of her surgery. They had to surgically remove that necklace from out of her wound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this isn't just someone slashing their throat open. I mean, and also why it stopped 2 millimeters, I'm sure, away from her carotid artery.
Right.
But like you said, I just want to throw it out here, she could have fully intended on killing herself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're also looking at these photos, she has cuts and scratches and bruises all up and down her arms. Like, this isn't just 2 wounds and done. She's pretty banged up. She has some bruises on the top of her hands, which could possibly be from a struggle. She has some really heavy bruising on her arm from her wrist to her armpit, which is really strange if she self-inflicted the stab wound.
Uh-huh.
And then there's some lacerations on her finger, which is on her left hand, which is her non-dominant hand. As if maybe she was fighting back a little bit.
But then why
her
does
fingers
she
get cut.
not... If she was asleep, how is she fighting back? That's my question, though.
Hang on.
Okay.
I have a theory on that. There's nothing set in stone. I just kind of have a theory.
Okay.
Now, experts are saying that the stab wound on her arm, that's all the way to the bone, is consistent of a self-defense wound. Like if someone's stabbing, she would have lifted her arm up to defend herself, and then it just stabbed her in the arm. And if these are self-inflicted, she wouldn't have had time to make all of these wounds on her body between the time she woke up, Darren came down, she called 911.
Right. Okay.
So, that's why they're thinking that this is like self-defense wounds.
Unless she, like, did it and then called for Darren.
So Damon was still breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she had a 6-minute phone call to 911.
Right.
And they said that he would have only had 8 minutes to live between all of this. This should have taken, from the stab wound to him dying, would have been about 8 minutes.
Okay.
So that would have only given her 2 minutes between stabbing him and then calling 911.
That is not a lot of time.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be a ton of time to, like, bang yourself up. Because I thought the same thing. Well, what if she just did all this and then killed him and then... But, like, that's not a ton of time.
It's not. But there's also the possibility, like, was he really still breathing? Or were they
I think paramedics still found him breathing, but just the life-saving techniques they used, I mean, they just didn't work. Yeah. He was still found alive, technically. When they came in. Now, this diary entry that they only used one line of.
I do remember this point, too.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that made me go, I don't think that's good evidence.
Yeah. And that's the same thing I thought. And now, again, the entry says, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to do. And that's the part that was used in court, and it was 1 month from their murder. But really, they didn't use all of it. They just used one line. The whole thing says, Devin, Damon, and Drake, I hope that one day you can forgive me for what I'm about to do. My life has been such a hard fight for a long time, and I just cannot find the strength to keep fighting anymore. I love you three more than anything else in this world. Please do not hate me or think that in any way that this is your fault. It sounds a whole lot like a suicide note.
Yeah, that's what I felt like about it. It sounds more like she was planning on killing herself, but she wasn't sure about it yet. Yeah.
She just wasn't completely there yet. I mean, if she was planning on killing them, I wouldn't assume that she would be like, I love you three more than anything. Please don't hate me for this. Because if she was going to kill them, why would they,
I don't know, man. Psychosis is a hard thing to navigate.
And I mean, if we're looking at that, look at Chris Watts. Look at what he did to his kids.
Right.
And he's still like, oh, they would have been blah, blah, blah. Now, don't even get me started on that. Let's talk about Darlie.
Yep.
The court also used the fact that she bleached her hair, she got breast implants, and I assume they're using this to say she lived such a lavish lifestyle or such a vain lifestyle that she was only worried about herself. And, of course, now that the money's gone because of a new baby, she can't live this vain lifestyle, so she kills her kids.
I mean, as a hairdresser, I feel like getting your hair colored is not an indication that you don't love your kids. Like,
hair care is self-care.
Right. I don't, yeah.
So, I mean, they're claiming character assassination, which, I mean, if we're looking at it that way, it kind of looks like, oh, she's really pretty. She's got big boobs,
She loves herself more than her kids.
Right. But, I mean, even though they think this, neighbors and friends, family, they all said Darlie was a great mom. She loved her kids so much. And, like, the neighbors, like, they let their own kids even go there and play with her kids. Like, she didn't seem like anything was wrong. Mm-hmm. However, mental illness doesn't look like mental illness a lot.
Yeah. It can seemingly come out of left field.
Right.
I've known a couple of people who committed suicide, and it's just always like out of the blue. It seems like you don't realize it's coming until it's happened.
Yeah. And people always say, oh, they never seemed like anything was wrong.
They seemed so happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that is not a great indication, but they all believe she was a great mother and she loved her kids.
Yeah.
But, I mean, jurors had already pretty much made up their mind about her. And, of course, the silly string didn't help. But let's talk about the silly string for a minute. What they didn't mention in the court, mainly because I don't think they were supposed to do it and they could have gotten in trouble for it, the police. They actually put surveillance on this gravesite. But they pled the fifth and loopholes, yada yada. So nothing was ever really done about it. They actually had video and sound at the gravesite. And what they didn't mention at the court case is that before this birthday party, there was actually a 2-hour prayer vigil at the gravesite that day where, you know, everybody was crying, they were praying, they talked about missing the boys. It was like a really raw, emotional event. And then it was like, okay, well, let's celebrate the birthday. Let's do something good.
Yeah.
But the public never got to see that part.
Of course they didn't.
Yeah.
That doesn't make for good television.
No. So what they get to see is Darlie chomping on a piece of chewing gum saying, oh, they're up in heaven right now playing and celebrating their birthday, yada, yada, yada. And it didn't look too good.
But also, I want to point out here, too, that you have a woman who was very clearly suffering with some mental illness before this even happened. So now she's lost 2 of her kids.
I would have been in shambles.
You could swing from, like, crying and miserable to hysterical laughing in an instant.
Yeah.
Just because of your mental state.
Well, and think about, I mean, if she had postpartum depression, I mean, that rears up in several different ways.
Yep.
So it is very possible.
There could have just been a moment of, like, detachment for a moment. Like, I'm going to pretend my kids are okay and celebrate their birthday.
Yeah. I mean, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I know we mentioned it before, but it bears repeating in all of this because it kind of goes together. That wine glass that was over the bloody footprint. Her defense team actually stated that the scene was contaminated by first responders. Like we mentioned, you know, somebody could have just kicked it around.
Right.
I mean, there was a lot of shuffle. They were trying to save these kids' life. They weren't worried about...
They weren't trying to take care of a crime scene. They were trying to save kids' lives.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's possible that it just got shuffled around. The screened window is another one. The prosecution claims that there was no evidence of anyone coming in or out or that they were around the window that night. They mentioned the dust on that screen. They said nothing was moved and they didn't find any footprints. Now, like I had said before, like this window was really large. Like after reading all of this, I had to go and find pictures of the house because I wasn't quite getting the makeup of the inside of the home.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually found pictures of the window and the utility room. From the inside, it's only maybe like a foot, maybe a foot and a half from the floor. Like you could easily climb out of it.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that far away from the outside. So you could definitely easily climb in if you needed to. And like I said, the mulch is underneath this other window. So of course there's not any footprints.
Unless they assumed they would walk up from that side, which is putting a pretty heavy limit on what they think this person would have done.
It's really weird. Like, even if you step out, even if there's like a thin line of mulch that I missed in the picture, because I'm looking at it straight on, it would have had to have been like a really thin line of mulch there. Like, you could just step over it even.
Yeah.
Because it's literally just like a concrete sidewalk against the house.
Yeah.
So, I'm not getting where they're saying no footprints, and there's not really anything to disturb other than that screen window, which still had the screen on it. But I guess that just depends on how small a person is, which is a stretch to say, but I don't know.
So there's been several times I've noticed you've said that the window was in the garage and then the utility room.
It's like a utility room that leads into the garage, like it's all kind of just there.
Kind of like a hallway room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The next thing that they mentioned was the screen fibers that they found on the knife. Now those fibers were on the bread knife, like we mentioned, in the knife block in the kitchen, and it contained those fibers, fiberglass and rubber coating that's usually on the screens. Now, the fibers weren't tested against anything like initially. They just saw that it was consistent with the screen and kind of made up their minds. Oh, this is from the screen.
Yeah. But I mean, people use knives to open things all the time. Like, well, anytime I get a package, I grab a knife out of my knife block and cut it open. Like,
yeah. But the thing is, what is the reason of cutting the screen open? But it really could just be something, just a weird coincidence. Like, I don't know how weird it is, but like maybe you cut it open, something, a toy or something got stuck. I don't know. You know what I mean? Just something really strange. But her defense team actually had some of the brushes tested that they were using to dust for fingerprints and stuff.
Yeah.
And they had a couple of the brushes came back with some cross-contamination with those same fibers. So now they're wondering if maybe they were kind of dusting for prints. They used the same brushes to brush the knife. Some fibers got on the knife, and now it just kind of looks like it came from
I can see that defense, but at the same time, were the fibers found like on the serration of the knife? Because I have a hard time believing that they.
I don't know if it was a serrated knife, though.
Or, well, on the knife blade, or was it on the handle? Was it, where did they find the fibers, I guess, is a big question to me.
That is a good question.
Because if they only found them on, like, the blade.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't personally wouldn't go, yeah, that's definitely cross-contamination. But if they found it all over the knife, then, yeah, sure, that's totally possible.
Well, they actually found those fibers in other places, too. So, like, these were on the brushes. They found it in a couple of other places, so they're wondering if maybe it just came from the brushes.
Well,
so
makes sense. I mean,
it's very possible. And the biggest thing, to me anyway, is that they found a bloody fingerprint on the glass coffee table in the living room. And if you go looking for it, it's actually called fingerprint 85J, and you can find it fairly easily. That's how they categorized it, in the evidence. Now, this fingerprint didn't match Darlie's. It didn't match Darren's, and it looked like an adult's, so they didn't test it against the kids. It didn't match any of the paramedics, any of the detectives. It's just there. Like, it doesn't match against anybody. So they're using that to say maybe there was an intruder there.
Yeah.
They didn't compare it to the kids, like I said, originally. Darlie actually asked for an exhumation of the boys. When they were buried together. So it would have just been like, one exhumation.
Yeah.
But they had also been holding hands in the coffin.
Oh.
Yeah. And then also water had leaked into the casket. So by the time all of this came up and they exhumed them, there was nothing to test against.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was kind of unusable against them. But as of now, as of 2018, I guess, they're forced to just try to match by DNA, but, I mean, they're still waiting on results, like, to this day.
Mm-hmm.
I also found that there was another print found on the utility room door that couldn't be matched to anyone, but I didn't get a ton of information on that one. But I did read that they were trying to test it, too, and that there was a third latent print, and this print was found later, and it was underneath the second print on the utility room door. Experts have excluded Darlie as the source of these prints.
Were they all bloody fingerprints or just fingerprints?
I don't think they were bloody. I think they were just fingerprints. But I could be wrong. Okay. Don't hold me to that one. Now, there was an expert that was contracted by the prosecution who says that one of Darlie's fingers can't be identified or excluded as the source of the bloody print on the glass table. But Darlie has been excluded as a source of the prints on the utility room door, too. So they're not her fingerprints. The Federal Appeals Court, again, granted Darlie permission to have tests run on them. But, I mean, it's still being delayed.
Yeah.
So that's going to take a while.
It only goes fast when they're convicting her, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Another really weird piece of evidence that nobody really talks about, I guess. I don't know if it was mentioned in the court case or not. It should have been if it wasn't. It was found 75 yards away from the home, which is 225 feet, if you're counting. It was actually in an alleyway that was next to a trash can, and it was like right above a drainage opening. And it was like a single sock with blood on it. and it had blood from both of the boys on it. It was collected when the investigators initially, kind of went through the neighborhood. So this was found rather early on, but nobody really did anything with it.
Which is crazy.
Which is crazy because it's such an odd...
It sounds more like this evidence doesn't fit our theory. We're going to ignore it.
That's exactly what I thought. One of the questions was, could it have been planted by Darlie? Okay, one, if she was going to plant it, why would it be there?
When would she have planted that?
That's the biggest one. When would she have planted that? That's such a weird thing.
I'm going to go throw this bloody sock out randomly.
Yeah.
By this gutter.
It doesn't make sense.
This will clear me. Whoop.
She would have had to plant it, she wouldn't have had time. She would have had to, thrown it out in the front yard or something. Mm-hmm. For there to have been time for her to call 911 and, So I wonder if, maybe there was an intruder and maybe they left and maybe they just took all their clothes off and shoved it in a drainage ditch.
Or at least the bloody ones, yeah.
Yeah. And then just missed the sock, because think about it, if it went down into that sewer, it's gone. Mm-hmm. You won't find that evidence.
Yeah.
And they just happened to accidentally leave a sock. But, they want it tested. They're waiting on testing. The last biggest thing, and this is kind of a twist, and I don't know if you've heard this part or not.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Years after Darlie was convicted and sentenced, an affidavit came out at the behest of Darlie's appeals attorney. It was signed by Darren, her husband, and according to Darren, Darlie had actually brought up the idea of separation to him the night of June 5th, which was the night before the murders.
Right.
And I don't know exactly why he was throwing that in there, other than maybe, this may be why. Mm-hmm. But he also admitted to committing some insurance scams. He had someone steal a car so that he could collect insurance money from it. And then, not long before the murders, he had actually been talking about setting up some kind of insurance scam to his home. The idea is he wanted someone to break in, steal a bunch of stuff, he'd collect the insurance money, pick the stuff back up later, and just kind of pay them off, share the money. And the weird thing is, why wasn't this mentioned before? Well, one, he would have gotten in big trouble for it. But, when Darlie was looking for lawyers to help her in this court case, Darren was really afraid that this insurance scam stuff would turn up and, of course, would look really shady considering, Darlie had a $250,000 life insurance claim on her.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And then, so Darren was, speaking to attorneys as well to help her. And he found one who told him that he could leave Darren out of it completely. None of this stuff would come up. That was the attorney that was hired. And apparently this lawyer had repped Darren before, so he knew him. Mm-hmm. But this kept Darren out of the picture completely.
Convenient.
Yeah. And then, of course, Darlie didn't find out any of this until years after she'd been on death row. She didn't even know it was something that she should have brought up. She could have easily said, over here, he could have been trying to kill me.
Yeah, how about this guy?
Yeah. But apparently even other people had known about it. The people he was talking to about setting this scam up. Even Darlie's stepdad was in on it.
Wow.
He knew about it. But he said he didn't know why. He didn't think about bringing it up at all.
Huh.
Yeah.
But still, though, Darlie saw him come downstairs. What are the chances he ran away from her, went out the window, climbed back up, got in his bedroom, and came running down the stairs totally blood-free?
Well, what if the idea is it was just a staged robbery gone bad? Or
they hired someone to come in and do it, and instead he just killed everyone?
Or maybe he hired someone to kill them.
Or, yeah.
Just to end it, Darlie actually tried to appeal her case a couple of times. The first time was on the basis of the transcripts. Her original court transcriber made at least 1,800 significant errors in the court transcript. She would record people's answers wrong. She would change statements that were said.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. But the reports were fixed and her appeal was denied. And then, of course, the second one is in 2018 where they're trying to test everything and they're still waiting on results. So we still don't know the answer to that one. I know we're like totally running really long. And if you've stuck here this long, thank you. But real quick, I kind of want to just throw these out here just to kind of like put them out into the universe. If, say she killed her children under postpartum depression, could she have done that? Would she had even remembered it if she did it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Psychosis is a weird thing, man.
Yeah.
But also, I'm still stuck on the why didn't she wake up? If she was being viciously attacked, almost murdered, why didn't she wake up?
Well, and here's my next one. This is what I've been telling you to hang on for. This is the one that's what keeps me like, why didn't you wake up? Because one, she wasn't sleeping very well as it was.
Right.
She said the baby would keep her up. She's a light sleeper. You already have kids sleeping downstairs. Most of us have that mama sleep where you can hear things and you immediately wake up.
Yeah.
So it's very strange that she slept through that.
If one of those boys had cried out at all, I feel like that would have woke her up.
Yeah. Well, even just the weird breath sometimes could wake me up.
Yeah.
You know? So it's very weird that she didn't wake up. With Darren having these insurance scams, possibly maybe even a hit if we're looking at it that way. Was she drugged? She had that glass of wine. Did he put something in her drink?
That's true.
Was she ever tested for any kind of drugs in her system when she was at the hospital?
Probably not.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. But I don't know. Do they do that for surgeries? They may have asked her. I know they ask.
But how would she know?
Exactly. That's the point. And I mean, like, they spent years married after she was on death row. Was he staying with her because he was guilty? Or he felt guilty? Did he work so hard to try to defend her because he felt guilty? And then the sock is such a strange, like, out of left field piece of evidence. Mm-hmm. Could there have been an intruder? Could there have been more than one person doing this? It seems like all of this together, it seems like there had to have been more than one person.
Yeah, I definitely have swayed my opinion. You've changed my mind here.
I did it.
It's
just a really, really strange case.
That sock is what got me. Like, why would that sock be out there?
Yeah. In such a weird, random spot. Too far away for her to go throw it out there.
I do remember being on the fence about this case originally. Mm-hmm. And then I can't remember what evidence it was specifically. I think it may have been the bloody sink or, you know, just something that's like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why didn't she wake up? I think was one of my big ones.
That was a big one.
That just kind of made me go, it seems a little more likely she just did it herself. But I hadn't heard this other evidence about the sock and the other stuff. So now I'm kind of like, it doesn't sound like she did it anymore.
I know, it sounds really strange. If she did it, I wonder if she had another person. I wonder if Darren had something to do with anything.
There's still that 911 call where she's like, I don't know who could have done this.
Yeah. And see, there's so much on both sides that make me just kind of go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I do not have, and oh my God, you should see, like, if you do like any kind of research on this, go down to the comments of things.
Oh,
and
no.
People just fought over this.
Oh, I'm sure.
and I'm sitting here going, I don't know what she did. I don't know what happened. Ooh. It's just really strange. But that is the Darlie Routier case.
Thanks for all of the questions that you gave us instead of answers today, Ashley.
That's what I'm good at. I'm really good at that. Thanks for listening.
Like us on Facebook at True Crimes and Weird Times Podcast.
Follow us on Instagram at True Crimes Weird Times.
Email us your stories at truecrimesweirdtimes@gmail.com.
And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave a review.
Bye.